Brutal news in the world of the Minnesota Vikings here on a Tuesday morning. JJ McCarthy is set to have surgery on his meniscus. We don't know how long he's going to be out. We don't know the future, but we do know that this sucks. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what possibly happens with a meniscus injury, what different types of surgery there is, and our own producer Dave has had this injury, and he'll shed some light on kind of what the process looks like. And then we'll turn to the future. What does this mean for the 2024 Minnesota Vikings and beyond? Welcome to a sad episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show, a special Tuesday afternoon edition. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave, now in the top left corner. And it is a little bit of a somber mood here today. JJ McCarthy will be out an undetermined amount of time due to meniscus surgery. The date for the surgery has not yet been announced. Kevin O'Connell initially told reporters Monday night before night practice that McCarthy would be out with knee soreness. My first instinct when I heard knee soreness was one of two things. One, he just got a bruise and he just in a little bit of pain. The second one was meniscus, because meniscus injuries can manifest a significant amount of time after the injury because it's cartilage. It's not a tendon. It's not a ligament. It's not a muscle. It's cartilage. So it's a different kind of injury, and we're going to have a lot of discussion on that and try to educate everybody on what to expect here moving forward. And then we heard that, hey, there's a press conference at 11:30 via Zoom with Kevin O'Connell. Look, when I first heard that, I'm like, hey, it's not time to panic yet. He did tell the media that he was going to inform them what was going on. Let's wait and be patient. And then 3 minutes for the press conference, Adam Schefter drops the bomb that he's going to have knee surgery. And it was confirmed by Tom Pelissero, who also had the tidbit that it was a meniscus. And McCarthy will not be practicing against Cleveland Browns. He will not be playing the rest of the preseason. And there is a chance he could miss the entirety of the 2024 season. This all sucks. And like, I may not have been the highest on McCarthy, but it was very obvious that his development plan was going incredibly well. And now his development plan is going to likely have to change, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. And I don't think it's going to be detrimental to developing him. But it's obviously better if he's going to be able to practice and be on the field and do all of those things rather than just do the book work in meeting rooms and game planning and stuff. Those things are really important, but you want to be able to have the on-field stuff too. And Dave, what's your reaction to this? It just, when I called you this morning telling you there's a press conference, it was like, we were a little bit worried, and that's kind of come to fruition.
Justifiably so. My reaction came last night when we heard he had knee soreness and he wasn't going to play. I even wrote, this has Vikings fans PTSD full terror mode last night and today so far. We held back from he might be held back from the trip to Cleveland for more tests. The history of Vikings QBs and knees, be it Bridgewater, Bradford, Culpepper, etc., has people fearing the worst after everyone was so excited for the young man's play. And I was, you know me, I was hyped over what I saw on Saturday. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was great. And now we hear this, and it is such a letdown and disappointment. It's Eric Thompson that puts out the two circles the Venn diagram of Vikings fans and people that have nice things. And those two circles never overlap. And it just feels that way today as we find out.
Yeah, there's no other way to paint this other than, hey, Dave, this sucks. And we're going to have a conversation here on the show kind of talking about the overarching element of this. And honestly, you don't want this to happen when you're Sam Darnold, but I don't think you could have had better news for your job security with the Minnesota Vikings in 2024 than what Sam Darnold got today. And I think that's going to be an important element to this whole conversation about trying to project out this season. Because in meniscus, if you do the full repair and he's out the entirety of the 2024 season, his knee theoretically should be 100% fine by April. And then he can participate in OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and then we'll be good to go. So that's something to consider. But Dave, I think we should talk about the different types of surgery. And other than being a medical doctor, you are probably one of the people who are the most experienced with this because this happened to you. And I know there are two types of surgeries. One is the trim, and then the other is a full-blown repair. What can you kind of help us understand about the process McCarthy's about to go through?
Well, first off, when I did mine moving furniture. We were moving stuff at the office at work, and I moved furniture, and I felt a little pop in the knee, and I thought nothing of it. Sort of like popping your knuckles or whatever. You get that relief. And, oh, cool. Okay. And I pressed on. There was no discomfort. There was no nothing. It wasn't until the next day when I woke up and my knee was swollen. And it's like, oh, and it was sore at that point in time. And I'm sure this is what happened to McCarthy. After 24 hours, his knee started to swell and he had knee soreness. And that's when he went to the trainer and said, Doc, I got knee soreness. And they sat there. Now, I had to get an MRI. I got an MRI on mine, and it was reported he got one last night on his. The MRI can see through the swelling good enough to determine if the meniscus is torn, and you can see the tear in the meniscus. When I looked at the results of my MRI, yep, sure as shooting, there's my tear, and you could see it. And I had a little piece overlapping a bit. And then they go from there on how you want to treat it. Now, I had a very good orthopedic surgeon, and he says, well, here's what we can do. Says 99.9% of the time, a meniscus will not heal on its own because it is cartilage. But there is a small percentage of people where it has healed on its own. And then we went, interesting. Okay, cool. He goes, one, I can give you this shot. It's going to take down the swelling and everything else, make your knee feel better. It's full of steroids and all sorts of other mixture he had. And he goes, we're going to give you that anyways, because even if we decide to have surgery, we can't go in until the swelling's down. And I said, okay. And he gave me the shot. And the shot itself is sort of painful because it's got a long needle and it goes inside between the joints of your knee. Say this is your knee. That needle goes inside in multiple spots and he's. But after he did that, I was like, whoa, I can move my knee. It feels great. I go, Doc, this feels like a brand new knee. He goes, yeah, it will for about a week. And that's the way it was. But in my circumstances, when we looked at the MRI, he goes, I can go in and I could trim it off. Mine would have been the trim because it was a tear. And he goes, see this here on your knee bones, bottom of your knee bones, these little lumps? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's arthritis. I said, oh, great. Didn't know I had it. And he goes, oh, yeah. And if you got it there, you've got it all over. And I said, oh, you're full of good news. And he goes, but if we opt the surgery route, even though it's just a little slit and they stick in the little probe thingies, right? There's a couple little slits and they go at a couple different angles. He goes, your arthritis will get worse real bad. So I decided, well, can I live with getting a shot every few months and to see how it feels after that? And that's the line I took. And yes, I could. The only time it bothers me is every once in a while if I turn wrong or if the tear pops over and overlaps. But for the most part, it doesn't bother me anymore. Now, I'm not running like I used to. I'm not lifting heavy objects like I used to. I'm not as physical as I used to be. So it could, the repair, if he goes, say it's a bucket repair, and a bucket is where a piece, it doesn't completely separate, but it tears inward like a handle and you can pull it up, and that has to be repaired. If he does that and gets that surgery, that's the long one. Yep. Now, will that increase his chances of developing Sam Bradford knees over his career? Quite possibly. It very well could. We said yesterday, I'm hoping for a 15-year career on this kid. That, as of this morning, I'm hoping for 10, if we can get that far. Just because it is a meniscus, and I know even with surgery, he's not going to be 100%. How long did Adrian Peterson last? He had his cleaned out.
He had the bucket handle. So he got that week 2. It was the first game ever at US Bank Stadium, regular season. It was September 14th. He tried to come back 3 months later, and he played a little bit, but then they shut him down once the Vikings knew that they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they're just like, well, we're not going to run him back out there. And I don't think the Vikings are going to be trying to rush McCarthy back out there either, because you're looking at a situation where with McCarthy, this is about a long-term play. You don't have to play him this year. You don't have to worry about playing him this year. The regime is not going to feel pressured, theoretically. I mean, maybe they do start to feel pressured, but they shouldn't have to feel any pressure about playing him at all. Where some regimes, you draft a quarterback, you better play that guy because ownership tells you to. Don't get the sense that the Wilfs are going to be doing that. And now you have a situation where he's injured and you can take the time to allow him to heal, allow him to have the proper healing. And I think that's going to be really important. Now, if the proper procedure is just the short term, the trim, then do that. But I think the trim is more about, hey, you're 35, you need to make it back for the playoffs. Let's just do it, because it can significantly impact, from all perspectives I've read, your long-term knee health. And I don't know at what age, Dave, you got your meniscus injury, or how
40s.
long ago it was. Yeah.
50s.
You know,
40s.
McCarthy's 21 years old. You know, that can potentially set him up for decades and decades of knee issues if he doesn't get this taken care of the right way. So,
and football's not easy on the knees to start off with. Players get degenerative knees as they get older anyways, because of all the impact that football causes. And then you add this and it makes it worse.
Absolutely. I think it was 2021, that preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs. It felt like Irv Smith was starting to come into his own and break out, and he had a meniscus tear. And there was conversation, well, it's this very similar to what McCarthy's having. He's going to have surgery. We don't know what that's going to lead to, because it's very, very hard to see with an MRI the extent of this injury. And that doesn't mean that every meniscus injury you can't blatantly see with an MRI. If it's a full tear, that's a lot easier to see what the injury is, because there's multiple different tears that they kind of attribute to this injury. It can be difficult to see with an MRI. So
with mine, it was clear as day. It was like looking at a negative, but it was clear as day. You could see it.
Yeah. Not everybody is that lucky. So they're going to go in with surgery, and they're going to determine at that point what they want to do. Are they going to do the quick, easy clean, or are they going to do the full-blown repair? My guess, based on how the Vikings have, one, handled this in the past, and two, how they're handling McCarthy's development, they are going to take the precaution and they are going to do the long-term repair because it's best for McCarthy as a person and as a player, because it's about doing right. If the Vikings had Michael Jordan at age 36 with the 1998 Chicago Bulls, maybe you do the trim. JJ's 21. There's plenty of great football in front of him. Do right by the kid and by his career. Now, I will say, seeing some things in the chat, Jared Pribble says ACL is less long-term issues. Yes, but the one thing that's weird about the ACL is when you're rehabbing, you put so much pressure on your other leg. Sometimes you tear your other ACL. So it's a knee injury. I think the best way to put it, instead of comparing them, knee injury bad.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
It absolutely is. And we wish the best to JJ McCarthy. And yeah, Kieran, if you ask my wife, she's thought we've been cursed for a long time.
Dave L says they're working on ways of a shot sort of deal, and I think David calls it Durolane, that they inject to hopefully spur the growth of cartilage. Also know that up on the International Space Station, they've tried to grow brand new cartilage up there in space for hopefully in future times when you can just go, all right, it's bad enough, swap it out. You know, when I'm 65 and need a knee replacement, rather than replace the entire knee with a titanium rod, let's go in there and put in new cartilage and give me 20 years to wear that sucker out. You know, so there are medical advances, but as of right now, it's a shame for Minnesota Vikings fans and for him, because he's going to lose all this developmental time that we would have thought he had on the field. Because once he has even when I didn't have the procedure done, I was still in a knee brace for a few months, not to, have it bend the wrong way and do all sorts of other things. So until it felt better.
Yeah.
Kubler says knee was twisted because McCarthy was so conscious of his footwork mechanics. I doubt that.
The tough part is we don't know when it occurred. And I don't even know if McCarthy knows when it occurred, because he came in 2 days later and said, hey, my knee's a little sore. And he could have had so much adrenaline, he didn't even feel it. He didn't even hear it. And he played, and it didn't look like he was laboring or anything at all. So to my knowledge, Dave, and you may know a little bit more because you've had the injury, I think meniscus injuries can kind of manifest themselves to the person around like 24 to 48 hours later, due to the nature of the fact that it's cartilage.
Right. And that's what happened with me. Like I said, it popped. I knew the knee popped, but I've had joints popping for years. That's not a big deal. But it wasn't until later the next morning, day, that my knee started to swell and get sore. And like I said, after it happened to me, I kept on moving furniture. It didn't hurt. There was no pain. There was no nothing. It was the next day that I started to feel it. And it is what it is.
Selling McCarthyism. Show your work. I would like to see who's making these reports, because I've heard nothing of the sort. If somebody credible is reporting that, I think that's an interesting element. I also would. It also doesn't fit the Vikings MO. So yeah, please drop some links in the chat. We'd like to see it, and then we'll have a conversation about it. But let's go on to the second part of this conversation, Dave, and that is Sam Darnold. This is, as Davey just says in the chat, positive fears there's no pressure on Sam Darnold. Yes, that is a big factor here, and it is what I like to call an unintended consequence. And consequences aren't necessarily all bad. It's an unintended results, because as I believe it was Newton said, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And when you have an action like McCarthy getting hurt, it's going to project forward in ways that you don't expect. And now Sam Darnold can play a little bit more carefree, a little bit more relaxed, feel more comfortable about his job security for the entirety of 2024. That's a good thing. Now, you don't want McCarthy to get hurt. Nobody wants that. Nobody wanted that. But now Darnold can feel comfortable like, hey, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to get yanked out. If I lose a game, I'm not going to lose my job. And he can go out there and just worry about playing football and bring his career back to the point where he can potentially be a starting quarterback for a long time, like a Geno Smith, like a Baker Mayfield. And who's to say that he will get to that point? I think it's a very possible thing that a guy this talented at this age, David, he's going into year 7 and he's 27 years old. He's young. And if he can find a way,
experience, yeah.
I know. If he can find a way to project forward, if he can find a way to take a step, that could be a humongous benefit for him. And then it could net the Minnesota Vikings a 3rd-round compensatory pick. Like, it could end up being good long-term for him. Now, if you ask anybody, would you have wanted this to be caused because of an injury? No. But the injury is just reality now. And now you have to look at it from that perspective. How are we going to look forward? T. Kubler says, JJ is the new Sam Bradford. Let's not go that far. Bradford tore an ACL in college. And he had so many knee injuries that they piled on and piled on and piled on. To my knowledge, this is JJ McCarthy's first. Could he become that kind of quarterback because of the injuries? Sure, but I don't think it's fair to speculate on that point. Mike Sullivan at Darnold sucks is going to be a long winter. Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing when it comes to the Vikings maybe being bad this winter. Nets them a better draft pick. Nobody's going to want the Vikings to be bad. I don't want to cover a bad team. I want to cover a good team. I want to cover a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. But not every outcome of this is bad. And I think it's fair to say, if the Vikings end up with a top 5 pick and somebody wants to trade up for a quarterback, guess what? You get a haul. And you get to continue surrounding JJ McCarthy with some really, really good pieces. And I think that's interesting. Now, Dave, let me ask you about...
Who's Cincinnati? Joe Burrow. Didn't he have an early injury in his career?
Torn ACL rookie year.
Uh-huh. Did that hurt him? Other than his rookie year?
No. Didn't hurt him at all. Did not hurt him at all. And I'm just going to kind of stay pragmatic here. It's not the end of the world. It sucks. But if you're going to have a season-ending injury, this is a good one. No. I don't think there's any good injuries.
No.
But I'd rather have this than a 9-month torn ACL.
If you want to look at it, but it's not a good injury.
No, but if it's a 6-month recovery time, he's going to be back by March.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something to know too. It's that is a positive, and I'm a very optimistic person, so we're going to look at positives here. A 6-month recovery time, which is a little bit on the longer side for a full repair, but you can be patient. He doesn't have to rush it back. He can still participate in the entire offseason program, which is going to be huge for his development. And I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Selling McCarthyism. Who's saying that the ACL and the meniscus are the same thing? They're not. They're totally different. One's a tendon that runs up through the middle of your knee, and the other one's a cartilage pad that sits between the two knee bones. Your femur and your lower bones. I'm sorry, I'm not a biologist. I haven't got all that stuff memorized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look, knee injuries are bad. Knee injuries suck. And it's a rough time, but now we can focus on putting this behind us, wishing JJ McCarthy all the best, and talking about Sam Darnold and talking about how this team is going to move forward. And that's going to be a big topic of discussion on tomorrow's Real Forno Show. We're going to talk about Darnold. We'll talk a little bit more about Darnold here too. But make sure you catch it out, and make sure if you're here for the first time because JJ McCarthy is got injured and you wanted to kind of hear some discussion on it, thank you very much. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, because when stuff like this happens, we will go live and we will have a nuanced conversation. And that's the big thing on this network. Everything is nuanced. Everything is well thought out. And you know what? You won't agree with everything. But if you agree with everything that the shows that you like say, you're listening to the wrong shows. You should disagree. That's the best part. We talk about it in the comments all the time. People disagree. That's okay. Have a conversation. Let's learn from each other. And we're really happy to be entering our second full season on Vikings First and SKOL, covering the Minnesota Vikings. And we're looking forward to doing it all with you. Let's have a conversation still about Darnold. And I'm really intrigued, Dave. I want to talk kind of as we progress forward here. I think the best way to start is by talking about Darnold's performance in that preseason game on Sunday. We didn't talk a lot about it on last night's Real Forno Show. But I think one of the big things with Sam Darnold is he looked comfortable, he looked cohesive, and he looked like the chemistry was still developing, and he was able to kind of parlay that and continue forward. And he only completed 4 of 8 passes. 2 of them were drops by Ty Chandler. So adjusted completion percentage, I'd put it 75% because both of those should have been caught. They hit him directly in the hands. They were easy catches. They were just not made. So he was comfortable. He ripped a beautiful dig route to Jalen Naylor for, I think it was like 24 yards. That was one of the better throws I've seen in a long time because there's a linebacker right there. You not only have to arc it enough to get it over the linebacker, you have to drive that ball enough to be able to get it to the receiver. It's a difficult throw to make, and he made it with ease. I thought that was really, really important. I thought seeing him do that with a guy like Naylor was also a good sign for Naylor. And I think that can be a massive, massive win for the Vikings, continuing to see him do that. Now, for those of you who haven't been to practice, I went to 5 practices. What I saw from Darnold, Dave, and this is going to get people really, really excited. I saw him grow as a player, and I especially saw the comfortability in the offense grow, and the chemistry with Justin Jefferson kept getting better and better and better. And we've talked about it on the show before. One of the difficult parts about judging new quarterbacks in a new system with a new team is the chemistry. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson had chemistry down. Kirk knows if Justin Jefferson is running this route from this formation, he's ending up at this spot. And it's going to be robotic. Darnold doesn't have that with these guys. McCarthy doesn't have that with these guys. Hall might have it with 1 or 2 of the guys low on the depth chart, like a Thayer Thomas or Tristan Jackson, but he doesn't have it with these guys. Mullins maybe has it with 1 guy, maybe 2. I
don't think Mullins
like
cares. He's going to sling it no matter what.
Yeah, Mullins is just, he is an old school chuck it and fuck it kind of guy. And I respect it. That's fun football to me, baby. And you look at all these different elements. I love it. I think the fact that Darnold is growing with the chemistry aspect, he is growing with a guy like Justin Jefferson, it gives me hope. The Vikings win total is still just 6.5. But they could win 10, 11 games and make some real noise. If Darnold proves that he's the guy and Brian Flores' defense takes a step forward, second year in the system, less thinking, they're making adjustments to kind of fix some of the issues they had at the end of last year. So improved personnel. Look, the edge rusher room is much better than last year from an overall standpoint and most importantly, Dave, a fit standpoint, because Danielle Hunter did not fit for what Brian Flores wanted to do, because he is not the kind of guy to get off of the ball quickly. All important things to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really intrigued to see how this works out. I am. This could work out really, really, really well.
If everybody else stays healthy.
And that's an if. It's the game of football, man. It's the game of football. Yeah, you can see a lot of interesting things. And I'm really excited to kind of see how this all shapes out. We're going to bring you everything you need to know about McCarthy, about Darnold, about the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are flying out to Berea, Ohio, the home of the Cleveland Browns. Berea, I believe, is a suburb just outside of Cleveland. They're going to have joint practices for the next 2 days. We're going to have that. We're going to have a very detailed episode of the Real Forno Show for you tomorrow night. Wednesday night, either 6:05 or 6:35. This is why you want to have the ring the bell. Our schedules get a little wonky this time of year, and we are doing everything we can to stay consistent. But ringing the bell is going to be the best way for you to know when we're going live, especially in times like this.
Mm-hmm. Now, for 6 or 6:35, I want the viewers, what's your best time out of those two options? Why we switched to 6:30, 6:35 was because of Tyler getting home late from training camp. Obviously, training camp's over. So he can go back to 6, but we had more people gather more quickly at 6:35. That's why we sort of stuck with it. So which do you prefer? Please let me know in the remarks, and I will take note of that.
Yeah.
Aaron said he never thought he'd say go Dallas, referring to Dallas Turner and not the Cowgirls. Yes. Very much.
Hey, I grew up a 49ers adjacent fan. I loved the 49ers. I really did. And we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about the Cowboys. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be watching every Cowboys game on all 22 this year. Why? Mike Zimmer defenses are back, baby. I love a Mike Zimmer defense. It's so much fun. He's just, if we could get Mike Zimmer to be an assistant for Brian Flores, oh my God, imagine the good crazy stuff they could come up with. Oh, I need it. I need it in my blood.
Now,
I need it in my blood.
Speaking of which, well, Dak didn't get his extension, so I'm hoping he balls out all the way up until the playoffs as normal. So, but we'll find out.
We will. That is the show here today, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to bringing you all the information that you need. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. I know it's a brutal day with the McCarthy injury, but don't forget, SKOL Vikings, and have a good one.
Yeah, and Aaron, when we find out whether it's a shave or a full repair, we'll let you know. With
that may not come in for a few days because we don't know when he's having surgery yet.
Like I said, they most likely have to let the swelling go down. So we'll see. With that, SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!